Ancient DNA charts Native Americans' journey to Asia thousands of years ago. Analysis of 10 Eurasian individuals up to 7,500 years ago gives a new picture of movement across continents. Smithsonian's Brian Handwork reveals to us, whether by walking a land bridge or traveling by boat, hunter-gatherers ventured out from eastern Eurasia some 20 to 30,000 years ago to become the first Americans, but the intercontinental journey was not just a one-way trip. Several times in history, genetic studies show Native Americans returned across the Bering Strait to Eurasia long before Europeans began arriving in distant parts of the Americas. And now, new genetic research is mapping out those ancient migrations back and forth across the Bering Strait and elsewhere across Eurasia during key periods of human prehistory. Scientists have recently recovered ancient DNA from the well-preserved bones and teeth of 10 Eastern Eurasian individuals from 7,500 to 500 years old, and they published their findings on Thursday in Current Biology. The new evidence helps show that from the coasts of America and Japan to the Siberian interior, some of our deep ancestors' populations may have been more mobile and intermixed than anyone would have imagined. Cosimo Poss, archaeogeneticist expert at University of Tübingen in Germany, and colleagues described the genomes of 10 different individuals who lived in 3 key regions: Siberia's Altai Mountains, the Kamchatka Peninsula, and other parts of the Russian Far East. Environmental conditions, cold climates at high altitudes, latitudes, allowed for optimal preservation of DNA that was hundreds to thousands of years old. In these environments, you can find individuals with 70 to 80% of human DNA in their bones, comparable to what you would get if you extracted saliva from you or me, says Poss. You can actually generate a genome of the same quality as a modern genome. It's amazing stuff, he said. Analysis of the DNA from those 10 individuals provided several key revelations about ancient migrations. First, the broad movement of ancient humans and cultures across Eurasia are evidenced by the discovery of an entirely new population that lived in Siberia's Altai Mountains. That culture's descendants, the authors show, were part of lineages that later helped populate both Europe and the Americas. Secondly, individuals of Japan's Jomon culture, isolated in the archipelago of thousands of years, migrated back to the Asian mainland from which their ancestors came. And finally, Native Americans migrated back into Asia several times over a span of thousands of years. The remains of some of the study's oldest individuals, dated to some 7,500 years before the present, are part of the previously unknown population of hunter-gatherers who lived in the Altai Mountains. Today, this crossroad is a kind of Eurasia four corners where Russia, Mongolia, China, and Kazakhstan border one another. Back in the early Holocene, at least 10,000 years ago, the Altai population lived in a region that was slowly warming. Post-analysis shows that this group was a genetic mixture of 2 distinct groups who lived in different parts of Siberia during the last ice age, the Paleo-Siberians and the North American Eurasians. The Paleo-Siberian population contributed to the first wave of humans to cross into the Americas, and many Native Americans today can trace parts of their ancestry to this group. The ancient North Eurasian lineage first appears in a 24,000-year-old Malta individual from Lake Baikal region, and over time made significant genetic contributions to nearly all European populations and to later North American migrations as well. Siberia's Altai Mountains are the same region where the 2010 discovery of a fragmented finger bone turned out, after a DNA analysis, to identify an entirely new species of close human relatives, the Denisovans. Their lineage, which existed from about 400,000 years ago to about 30,000 years ago, has turned out to be a rather complicated one. In 2018, scientists learned that a 13-year-old girl found in a mountain cave was born to a Denisovan mother and a Neanderthal father, showing that different species not only crossed paths in the region, but also interbred. This seems to also be a crucial region for us, for humans, Paul said. It might be that this was a corridor and crossroad for populations to mix. Post was surprised by the scale of human migrations revealed by the diverse DNA. He said, I expected movements maybe from one valley to another, but here we're talking about large-scale movements and mobility among these groups across vast areas of North Asia. According to co-author Kei Wang of China's Fudan University, one individual in Niznetikskan cave was found with burial goods like stone points, ornaments, and animal claws that may indicate religious overtones, and the possible practice of shamanism. That 6.5-year-old individual's genetic profile was different from his Altai region contemporaries and more akin to populations from the Russian Far East, suggesting he could have been from a genetically and culturally distant region. These types of mixing migrations give rise to the unique Altai population, and similar events can be traced in the genes of its descendants as well. For example, genetic evidence suggests that this Altai hunter-gatherer population may be the source of the ancient North Eurasian ancestry uncovered in groups like the Tarim Basin mummies and the Bronze Age cultures of the Lake Baikal region of southern Russia. The study also revealed connections between the remains of 7,000-year-old individuals from Russia Far East and the islands of Japan. The remains have significant amounts of ancestry related to the Jamon, a population of hunter-gatherers from the Japanese archipelago. Genomic analysis suggests that the Jamon, makers of the unique pottery, lived in relative isolation from about between 20,000 to 15,000 years ago until almost 3,000 years ago, when the traditional hunter-gatherers mixed with a new influx of rice growers in the islands. But the new study reveals that some Jamon left the islands for the mainland before that mixing, crossing the sea prior to 7,000 years ago. The findings also reveal ancient comings and goings across the Bering Strait. Scientists have already stated that groups in Asia made at least 3 major migrations into the Americas roughly 20,000, 5,000, and 1,000 years ago, but those events represent only half of the story. Growing genetic and archaeological evidence reveals that some populations made a round-trip journey. The new study identifies the timing of some back migrations, and it shows they were extensive enough that Native American lineages stretch away from the coast, reaching the Kamchatka Peninsula and even central Siberia. Post and colleagues compared the genomes of 3 500-year-old individuals in the Kamchatka Peninsula with people living there today. The 500-year-old individuals have significant amount of Native American ancestry, he said, but those living in the same peninsula today have twice as much. That result means that some Native Americans had returned to Eurasia before 500 years ago, probably about 5,000 years ago, according to estimates of when the genetic lineages converged in the ancient specimens. They also reveal that Native American people migrated across the Bering Strait more recently. Scientists can definitely say where those migrations originated. Each of the Native American populations the group tested, the ancient Aleut of Alaska, the Athabascan, the old Bering Sea lineages, could have worked as a proxy source for the genetic input. Finding genetic evidence of Native Americans in Eurasia is not surprising, notes David Meltzer, anthropologist at Southern Methodist University, not involved in the study. When Beringia, the land bridge, drowned approximately 12,000 years ago, that only meant it was no longer possible to walk from Northeast Asia to America. Starting around 6,000 years ago, maybe slightly earlier, groups used watercraft readily crossing the Bering Sea. Previous genetic evidence found in both ancient remains and among contemporary Chukchi people of Siberia had already suggested that humans moved in both directions across the Bering Sea thousands of years ago. What this new chapter does, Meltzer says, is give us a better sense of the number, possible timing of episodes of back migration. Isn't that something? This is by Brian Henwerk of Smithsonian on Collective Spark. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.